Hello, welcome to the webinar Maximize Your Influence in Business, at Home, and in Society. And today I run this webinar together with Benj Street, and he will probably introduce himself. But I just want to say that Benj Street I got to know, I think, about 2.5 years ago, and I've became really impressed about his way of thinking, being involved in acceleration and innovation. And besides that, we became really good friends. So I'm really happy that we can run this webinar together. My name is Arjan Visser, and I'm your host for the webinar. And also, I want to introduce the challenge, the future challenge that we're going to run in January 17 to 21st, which is all about how to accelerate your future. And in the light of that challenge, we run this webinar, and we had other preparation sessions. We stream live through LinkedIn. So I trust and can only check afterwards if LinkedIn, well, fulfills the expectation. And otherwise, YouTube, Facebook, it's all possible to join. And it would be really, really cool if you could connect, leave your comments. If technology supports our interaction, we see your comments and we can take the answer, include the answer in this webinar. So, Benj, I said a little bit about you being a good friend, an amazing accelerator and innovator. So tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Now's when I say all the nice things. Hi, I am Benj Street, and I, as well, am really excited to be taking part in this webinar today. And thank you so much for inviting me, Arjan. Like you say, we met a couple of years ago, and I've really appreciated your friendship, but also the way that you continually challenge me and everybody around to get a future perspective and to take themselves seriously. And to discover what could be. So I'm really passionate about innovation and seeing the innovation that is inside and is the potential that's inside everybody get released to change our world for the better. So today, we're talking about maximizing your influence, but this is about taking ourselves seriously. And yeah, really glad that there's so many of you joining. I have checked LinkedIn. It is working.
Okay,
so
good.
That's a great start.
That's a great start. Yeah. Technology didn't fail us this time. Well, to introduce, like before we can look at maximizing our influence and the how-tos in achieving that. And we really want to give you practical tools, trigger you to take the first step in actually extending your influence, and then on top of it, maximizing it. And one of the concepts that I use for years in futurizing and in executive coaching is actually that there are 3 areas in our life. And we also use those 3 areas in this context of maximizing your influence. And we tend to talk about a work-life balance, but I want you I invite you to just put that aside, because I believe there are 3 areas in our life, in our adult life, and in our upbringing and in our upgrowing. It starts with the home, and then it involves the society, like when we go to school, and then the moment we really start to be paid for what we do, it's that business part. And we have called it like influence in business, at home, and in society. So those 3 areas. And if you say, but I'm not in business, then just enlarge that concept of business to actually all your occupations. So everything you do is part of that business or the organization you're working in. But it also includes your hobbies, your volunteers, jobs, and everything else that keeps you occupied. So it's everything you do. So the three areas: at home, everything we do, let's call it business, and society. And what is interesting is that the moment those three areas in life start to interact, and there are intersections between, we start talking about between our home and everything we do. We start to talk about that's our household. So I always take the example as like hundreds of years ago, the people that worked at the farm were part of the family of the farmer, his wife, and the kids. So if we talk about the household, it's not just the nuclear family, but it includes those people that work for you. So if you run your own business, or if you are a manager of a team, it includes the people that are under your umbrella, under your sphere of influence. The other connections between your business, your occupations, and society is actually everything you do that adds value. And I have to say, and is rewarded. So, adding value to society, so serving great solutions, fulfilling services, etc., etc., everything you do is about adding value. And value is received when it's perceived as value and it's answered with the language of reward. So we could think that we add enormous value, but when it's not received and acknowledged as value, then the bottom line is we are really busy, but we don't have much impact. So then, of course, when we talk about those three areas, so I hope you can picture them as just three circles with the space in between. Then the last between the home and society is actually where you lead by example. So where you have a message, where you are such an influencer on society that it actually shapes society. And with the message, of course, we know we have many influencers. And I'm not talking about that one because influencing, which means people copying you, is not the type of influence we mean. This is really living a life and through your, not your, just your communication about products to get other people buy those products. That's the new definition maybe of influencer. But I talk really like leading by example.
I
And
think I think there is an element of the copying piece, but it's not copying the outside. It's copying the way of thinking, the way of doing things from the inside. Maybe.
yeah, yes. Yeah, I think that's a good one because when I don't want copycats of myself. And I
Yeah.
always bring that back. And that's why I think it's so important to understand it's connected to the home. You can connect that to growing up kids, like the way you parent them, you start nurturing them, then you start coaching them, then you start guiding them, and you want to release them. But in a healthy family context, no father or mother wants their kids to be there just like their version 2.0. Like what we want to see is actually that our children, and if you move that to the workforce, to the work floor, those people that follow you, you want to help them to understand their strength, their passion, their purpose, and actually find from the inside out who they are. And you want to equip them and guide them, but you don't want them to be like just a copy of you.
Yeah.
And we see that a lot around us, but I'm saying that's not the influencing, maximizing your influence in society. So in that context, the middle part of those three areas with those three roles is actually where it becomes interesting because that's where the unique you is, with your unique value, your unique voice, your unique message. And actually, when we talk about the first tool, is accelerating your impact. So the impact you have on society comes out of everything you do, your occupation, and is all about adding value and that the value is received and rewarded. And when we talk about reward, the plain example is always comes to money. And I would say money is a language to express value. And it's not a rich language, it's actually quite a poor language. So there are more valuable ways of rewarding received value, but money is definitely included. And when we leave money out, it should be something higher than money. And through the years of coaching small businesses, large corporations, I've noticed that this exchange of value with a closed wallet or without money being influenced actually never impacted that much. It was not such an influence. It didn't create the next version of society. So actually, it was quite a poor example of rewarding. And of course, it works when someone makes bread and someone else paints houses, but you don't need your house to be painted. So we invented money. That's the old way. That's the old example. In the new world, it's really like we need to express the value. It is so important for you as an individual in your journey to find out what your true message is, your true voice is, your unique value, where there's no competition, what you love to do for other people, where other people talk about and actually tell testimonials about how amazing you are in a certain thing. Well, if that comes together, then we really start to think about really rewarding, because you deserve to know that it is of real value. It accelerates you. So the reward accelerates you in taking yourself serious. Like you said, Benj, like being someone that recognizing the importance of being amazing. Like nearly sounds American, if I would say, but I love being in the US and here for a week or 2 weeks that I'm really amazing. But in the world where I'm most of my time, we don't say that. We don't believe it ourselves. And if we don't believe in our own value, how could we expect others to believe in our value?
Yeah, I
So
think that's
actually, yeah,
so. And I was going to say, I think that's really interesting. It is that feedback loop. If you think of it from control systems thinking, which my brain goes to sometimes, but that reward and value is the feedback loop that allows for the acceleration. And I think, as a small business owner or somebody who's not had experience maybe of accelerating, it's very easy to settle for a lower reward than perhaps, or a lower value than actually is the actual value of what you're delivering or of who you are. And so I really agree. I think it starts with taking yourself seriously, really understanding and believing and acting on and acting out really what it is that you carry, and sending out that message to people you're dealing with and the people around you. I'm delivering this, and this is the value that it brings. And then being okay to accept that reward, because I think that's the other trap that I see people fall into is if you don't really believe that you're worth it, then psychologically it's difficult to accept reward sometimes.
yeah,
And that's can be a massive killer to or a brake on acceleration.
yeah. Just to summarize, I just crossed my mind. My wife well, actually, she says it quite a lot, and I'm using it actually against her as well. But she says like, I don't want to be in a space where I'm tolerated. I want to be in a space where I'm celebrated. And why do you need the celebration? Well, it accelerates you into the future when what you do is valued by others. They're willing to listen, they're willing to be influenced, and they're willing to just put it flat, they're willing to pay for it. Then you know that your occupations add value for your personal growth. You're inspired, you're motivated to keep pushing and then trying to find the next level. And at the same time, it's also funded. And that really together accelerates you. And if what you deliver is not perceived as value and not rewarded as value, which in other words, people are not willing to pay and listen to you, then actually you're not having impact. And then you probably are on the right track of what is amazing to do, but there is this next step to take to connect it to that it's received and valued by others. So because then you know it starts with having impact on their lives and their businesses, and then it could outgrow that to having impact on their organization, their community. And at the end, that's what society is. It's just the community of multiple people that are not just fixed in any organizational structure, but it goes beyond the walls of organizations. So I think that's really for me the key about how do I accelerate my impact. Second thing, I think Benj, like you're the best person to talk about that. It's about how do you think? So how do you think differently?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this, pardon the pun, for a while now. Part of my journey to accelerate has been trying to understand some of myself, and I think one of the reflections that I've got is that I've thought differently and been trying to understand how I think differently, why I think differently, and I was reading some research from Harvard Business Review where they reviewed 5,000 entrepreneurs and executives, and what they found was that people who consistently made the effort to think differently are actually able to think differently. And I found this interesting because prior to this, there was a belief that there were certain people who were incredible innovators and different thinkers, but I don't believe that. I believe that absolutely everybody is born with the ability to innovate and actually needs to innovate to live and to accelerate. But it's a practice and it's a conscious decision. And when I was reading this research, I was just really encouraged that it's not just me thinking this on my own, but actually there's a whole bunch of people who've observed 5,000 other people and found the same thing, that actually doesn't matter who you are, if you take the time to practice thinking differently. And there's a bunch of tools that you can use to do it, but I guess almost before that, the thing that I wanted to talk about is why, and why would you think differently, and how can it maximize your impact? And I think there's three real kind of keys, or three answers to the why question. And I think the first one is about getting unstuck, because lots of people, me included, we get stuck. Stuff happens, life happens, and we get stuck. And one of the ways to overcome stuckness, and to the other way of thinking of it is, it's that inertia, that first bit of effort to get you moving. If you're thinking of an acceleration and maximization journey, that first bit of movement is always the hardest. And I think innovation and thinking differently is a really, really powerful way to do that. The next thing is linked, but I think is different enough to warrant its thing, and that's to kind of unlock and unleash creativity, which I really believe is an expression of our identity. And if we're going to see things change around us, see a world that is better and is transformed to the next level and see our home, our work, and our lives transformed, we need an overflow, I believe, of creativity from everybody involved. And for me, that then leads directly on to moving us towards this better future. And it starts, I think, I know we've talked so much about it, but it starts really with this kind of taking ownership of your own role in it, and ownership of your own thought processes, your own mindset that may well be not what it needs to be. And I think, the combination of getting a new mindset and a different way of thinking are probably the two biggest accelerants that I've experienced in my life, and in maximizing my influence in every area with everybody that I've dealt with. For me, mindset isn't just a one-dimensional thing. It's a multi-dimensional, whether it's having a growth mindset, or whether it's having an infinite mindset where you take a step really outside of the kind of space-time continuum that we're locked in, and look at stuff from a totally different perspective. Or whether it's a future mindset where, as you talk about a lot in your challenges and in pretty much everything that you do, who could you become, and what could be. So I think the other challenge that I put out there to people wanting to come on this journey to maximize your influence is, if you're going to take ownership, taking ownership starts with having a stance, and drawing a line and going, okay, this is what my mindset is today, but I need to this is where I want it to go. And whether you can trigger that and act on that yourself, or whether you need you need to confront yourself, or get in an environment where people will confront your mindset, you'll experience something different. There's lots of tools and techniques out there to change your mindset, and then practically to change your thinking. I think the other key thing in it is that it doesn't happen overnight. And if you can make it a game, make it fun, like the little kid who goes again to their parent when they're doing something fun. If you can capture something like that into how you change your mindset and how you change your thinking, then you'll see real progress and you'll see acceleration.
Yeah, well, listening to you, I just think like, I'm reflecting my own journey in this, because there has been a time that I just wanted to think differently, but actually that's not the first awareness I have of this development, this journey. Actually, it started like I think early in my work life, or maybe even before that. I just got, let's use the word irritated, of that everyone agreed with the proposal and no one was just having a critical note. No one was challenging it. And then I got accused of playing the devil's advocate. But I thought, that sounds like that I'm against. But I'm not against. I'm just the fact that I would say now that I got irritated that no one else was thinking, and everyone was just, I would nearly say, sucking up to the one that proposed the idea. And then later I started to understand that actually having alternatives, like in the brainstorming. Um, and the big breakthrough I had in my thinking, that is that I understood that our brain is trained, wired to always make a choice. And actually, by being biased for the choice, we go away, we throw away so much gold by the things we don't choose. So I forced myself to really like have all options open and come with a higher idea that outperforms all other suggestions and options, and try to have as much of the benefits of every individual option in it.
Yeah.
And in that journey of being like, starting with like, I want to think different, or is no one else thinking, to be a critical thinker, or to swap to creative new ideas, and then it started to combine the two to have overarching ideas. But
It
the word that you trigger is that word ownership. And I know that you also, when you talk about it, you say it's about being intentional. So it's owning it. So loving yourself, thinking positive about yourself, courageous enough, believe in yourself. It's, I think it starts with, and then be intentional, and ownership are just on top of those things.
yeah.
Did I capture that well? Or
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think the other things that have just come back to mind really is that sometimes I think it takes courage, because it can feel a lonely journey sometimes, because I would say the mainstream culture is not necessarily on the same journey of wanting transformation. um whether you look at a Facebook algorithm, which is designed to um, reinforce the status quo. You get shown adverts based on the same, or the based on your likes or whatever. And I think that's got some value, but I don't think it'll ever, that kind of reinforcing, like you were saying, the irritation that you had where everybody just agrees with everything and nobody expresses their own, nobody brings themselves to bear, nobody brings their thoughts and opinion. um, that's when creativity really starts, and that's when innovation is started to unlock, when you have a group of people, and people are free to be who they actually are. um, yeah, and just thinking, that if you want um, to see transformation, you need to renew your mind,
yeah,
renew your mindset, renew your way of thinking. um,
yeah, and it's a circle. It's like
yeah,
you said, you have to take a stance. Like, if you don't stand up for yourself, who will? It's the same thing with the value, the same with the belief. So you develop the tools so that when something triggers potential increase, growth, solution, new value, then you know how to use your thinking tools, and through using them over and over the time, like repetitive, playful state, you actually end up with an upgrade of your mindset, which actually is the stance for the next cycle.
yeah,
So it's a circular process of starting and ending with the mindset. And in the meantime, you actually use your skills, and you develop your skills by thinking differently, which I think every trigger could potentially use another way of thinking.
yeah,
So it's not just like, oh, thinking differently is the way to think. No, that's an overarching term of many different ways of thinking. It's like building your house. You have many tools, and for
yeah,
every part of the house, you use other tools. So the same with your mindset, to go to the next status quo. So to break with the algorithm, I love it how you say that with the Facebook algorithms. It just makes me think of those adverts you have in your browser, and I always think they're always a day too late. When I finally made up my mind what I want to purchase, then they come with the adverts for weeks, and it's like they want to enforce something that I already have.
Yeah.
Like how worthless. But in Facebook, it is exactly the same algorithm, but actually it repeats and enforces your way of thinking, which actually is the first step of getting stuck again.
Yeah.
So I tend to talk about the future quo as your next status quo. And I think these ways of thinking are really amazing, but it starts with permission.
Yeah.
So when we do this different ways of thinking, this future mindset, and you already mentioned it, like the definition I use for future mindset as an overarching thing is really that it's for me it's a way of living with and with purpose and passion to pursue understanding of who I can become, which actually in itself says it's not about the better version of yourself, but actually finding out what the next version of yourself is. And actually, I apply that in recognizing the future, which is the third how to maximize your influence in business, at home, and in society. Is recognizing your future is all about actually finding out what it starts with identity. Like Benj, you mentioned it. Creativity is an expression of identity. And we talked in the first one about accelerating your impact. It starts with knowing who you are, your unique self, your unique value, unique voice and message, and find out where you are celebrated, rewarded. So that identity is it's the next version. Like the future, your business, they're all, you would say, tools, journeys to get you from who you are today to who you the next version of yourself. And I look at that from a strategic point to organizations to businesses. What's the next version? Like we can improve the current version and try to make the best version of ourselves. But if we don't know what parts of ourselves are useful in the future, we could do a huge investment in ourselves that at the end is not what has not been worth it. So it's really a loss of resources, time, money, energy when we, based on the now and our current understanding, which is actually based on yesterday, we try to create the better version or the best version of ourselves, our organization, our business, our household. If we don't have some kind of advanced knowledge about what is valuable in the near future, it's worthless. Or it's so uncertain that we could just do something destructive. So, recognizing the emerging future is, well, it's my sweet spot. It is what I love to do, is equipping others to recognize their emerging future, find out who they can become, etc., etc. And it has been a topic that actually, while trying to read about it, you come at a very expensive, vague books about futurizing, or it is as flat as trends and hypes. But there are people that are really good in talking from the future and having a language about things that are not yet demonstrated. They talk about it as it is already now, and those people are quite influential. And we just have to look around us and we know them. Like they have crazy adventures. They currently, actually, some of them are into making space vehicles. And but we all know them as people that talk from a future perspective and really believe in it, and actually it unfolds. Like if you see how of influence current like Elon Musk is, and how you probably had thought about him 5 or 10 years ago as that sounds like alien. Well, currently, most of the things he talked about back then are reality. Actually, IBM became a global player because everyone started to talk in a past or no in a present term about who they would become. So it became a, we call it a full self-fulfilling prophecy, but actually it wasn't. It was the language that created it because everyone started to talk about it, everyone started to believe it, everyone wanted to see, so everyone recognized it when it arrived. And well, it's part of my mission. It's not my full mission, it's part of my mission to actually reveal this process, this step-by-step journey. That's why I run the challenges where I give access to the process for those who just want to be introduced to it, have an experience. It's at no cost, but I also run it in boardrooms and the executive um, leadership coaching. So actually, it is, of course, everything. When it's revealed, it's like going to a magic trick. If you know what's really happening, it sounds so obvious. But that's with most of the things we talked about. When you're looking forward to them, they seem huge. When you're behind them, you have a first level of mastery, they become obvious. But that's actually everything of value you carry. They seem obvious to you, but they're not obvious to those people that look up to you to receive your value. So never ignore what for you seems obvious and for others not. It's not that they don't see, it's actually that you're not as impressed as you maybe should be about the tools, the magic you have. So, in this process, the first step is actually has to do with stance, has to do with mindset. But can you see the future is now? Can you see from the future where you are today? And I always illustrate that with most of us walk backwards to the future. And then when the future happened, we say, I didn't see that coming. Well, that's obvious because you were walking backwards. And you could say, I'm not walking backwards. Well, with walking backwards, I would say we are mainly driven by a to do list and tasks that were already on the list yesterday. So today I tried to finish yesterday's to do list and the day before. Well, if tomorrow is not the same because then I will try to do today's to do list, then I'm walking backwards to the future. Well, that has two downsides that just jump top of my head. First of all, you don't know if it was really the right job to do because you were not looking to the future and see where it fits in the future. And secondly, you're surprised by the future because the future is coming to you. You're not going into the future is coming to you. So when you turn 180 degrees and you face the future, then you could start recognizing. That's the first step. The second step is that we need to see those three areas where we want to have influence, like in business, at home, in society. We need to use our creativity, our imagination to start creating an image of what they would look like in the near future. If we have that image, which there are tools and tricks that I will reveal in the challenge, so that's the cliffhanger. Um, then we could also look about what are the connecting, what are is the space, the roles we play in the future. So we talked about in the beginning our household between our future home and our future business, the role we play to run the household between the future way of our business and the future society we are looking forward to. What is the future added value we want to serve society with? And then the last one to close the triangle is actually our future way. Where do we want to lead? What's the future message we want to have developed out of all the mess we got through in our life, all the journeys we went through the depths of the valley? And where do we want to model? And we could think with our brain, but I have amazing experience with people that use their brain at the end of every thinking cycle. Maybe it sounds a bit ridiculous, but if you can chase what you sense but not yet feel, and you could just try to imagine it with your heart, what you really are passionate about, then your brain will catch up and start to rationalize why it's the right thing for you to do, instead of telling you that's impossible. Because impossible, we all know that social media posted where they say you only need one little quote and then it's I am possible. It is that. Like impossible is actually a mental blockage of what you have experience with and the perspective you're looking. So if you can redefine with the different ways of thinking how to look at the problem, and you can allow yourself to dream big and act big, then most things become possible through development, growth of personal skills. So when we have those uh, future areas, future roles, then we can start thinking about what our preferred future is. What is the place that this all would come together? So no longer talking about what we're going to do, but really like where do we want to be? What is our happy place based on those areas in life, how they function, the connections I do? What's that happy place on top of it? What is the future that I prefer? And then dream big, not just make checklists of complaints and rational thinking. Well, when we have done that, we can really start from that point what we call backcasting. Backcasting. Who do I become when everything happens like I have imagined? Who do I want to travel with to get from the future now? That was the first step. The future is now to that preferred future. Who do I want to travel with? Who is going to fund the journey? Who is going to grow with me and change with me to become their next version? We talk about that as in business, and we call that buyer personas. Let's swap the buyer persona to our future personas. Like, who do we want to add value to now and in the future, so that those people are the big celebrators of our progress? Because it's not a solo trip, it is in the context of those other people who love it, who cheer you on to go further, go higher. Last step is, of course, okay, what's the first thing I need to have learned at the end of next year, and what I'm going to do tomorrow differently so that I've learned that at the end of next year. So, and then year by year, you could set your milestones or update every 6 to 12 months your future perspective so that you get on growing and stretching and moving yourself forward with the thinking, with the value, with the impact and the influence, to actually find out that at the end of your life, you've done everything, you've owned everything with your full heart, you've been really intentional, and you just have pushed it to get as much out of life that was possible for you and has value for those around you. That's for me, in short, what a future challenge is about. To actually do the time traveling, because I just described how you can go on a trip into the future and start looking backwards from the future to the now. Shift your full perspective. I think you're muted, Benj.
Sorry. I, I I I think of it as almost creating the vehicle to travel to the future in, or to close the gap between the now future and the future,
Yeah,
and choosing who you want to who you want to bring in the vehicle with you. Um, yeah,
I think when we
and then
talk about,
accelerating it.
yeah, when you talk about acceleration, having impact at home, in business, in your business, in society, wanting to see the society, I think it's really valuable that we start seeing everything we do as literally like footsteps in this journey, everything we build as a vehicle to get there, which also means that the way you think about your job or your business, um, your your role, as really parts of a vehicle, and being intentional about who you spend time with, who you travel with, is really vital, is a key in having higher quality of life in
Yeah.
the future, in the now.
And experiencing the freedom that comes with that, I think, as well. Um, you know, freedom uh, in so many areas, and enabling that level of freedom for the people who you're leading and who you're impacting and who you're influencing. Um, I think for me, that's probably the biggest why behind it all. The seeing that people experience freedom.
Yeah, yeah. I like the way you phrased that one, because at the end, when I look to what's really important for me and I really protect, then it is things like identity, creativity, healthy leadership, playfulness. Like I would say, I'm summing up like core values and ownership, adventure. But the number one for me is really freedom. Freedom actually to help others to find that freedom.
Yeah,
And when I say freedom, maybe people think you mean financial freedom. Well, I talk about wholeness. So, like we talked about value with reward, and then there is financial with it. So, definitely, financial freedom is definitely part of it. I'm not saying how much in percentage, how big it's a part of it. That's up to you. But it's about wholeness. It's about the whole of you, which is including your mindset. What do you believe? It is including your skills. How do you think? What can you do? What can you create? What can you deliver? It is including your future perspective, your foresight, your possibility to act to what you have faith for, and it is including the cash flow, the investments. It's the whole package, because actually I just talk about you. I just look every time from a different perspective. So we have to see ourselves, actually, I would say, as a diamond, and start to recognize that it has many facets, and they're all really important because together they make the diamond. So I'm not putting one above another facet. That would be really ridiculous when we think of it ourselves as a diamond. And we just need to shine. So find that place, that space where there is the right light on you. So to wrap it up, the webinar maximize your influence in business. I hope you have some tools. I hope you had many triggers. Um, I know I went quite fast through that futurizing process. Well, we take in January a full week to go step by step through the steps from the future is now to the preferred future. So I really invite you to check it out, um, and I would really say make it a priority, just for a start point of the new year, that you give yourself permission to rise and take a stand. So just sign up for the challenge. It will be in a group, a peer group. So people that are on the same journey, want to go the same direction, because there is such an inspiration when you hear other people stretching themselves. It inspires you to take the next step. It inspires you to speak up, speak out, find new language. And we didn't go deep into new language, but that's a bit the secret I can reveal. It's all in language. We talked about it. Your value needs to reward it, because money is just another language to express value. all the way to you need to start speaking about your future with language that's not connected to the now or the past, but really out there to create the future.
And I think as well, to come about the thinking side of things, it's all linked to language, because it's the language of your thoughts, and how you can change the language of your thoughts um, is the way of transformation.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like self talk. We
Yeah,
always do a bit weird about self talk, but it's the voice you hear the most of the time. So get your self talk, give it an upgrade.
yeah, and I think it's an element of upgrading your own self talk, but taking time to recognize what your voice is in your head and what's not your voice, and separating that out. That's probably one of the big triggers to the mindset shift and unlocking and um, seeing freedom, releasing creativity and innovation. um, yeah, I don't know if we've had any questions on um, any of the forums. I haven't seen anything come in Melon, and there haven't been any in LinkedIn. But I wanted to say, if any of the bits that have triggered anybody uh, who's been listening to this, and you want to follow up, then from my perspective, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or on one of the other medium. I'm very happy to uh, put some time aside to understand where you're thinking and where you need breakthrough in your thinking. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
make use of
but
that.
but linked to the challenge, I've got a big vested interest in people joining the challenge, and to be fair, the mastermind that you run as well, Arjan, that peer group of people who are on a journey to continually discover their own individual emerging future, and work out how to get towards it as quickly as possible. To have other people on that journey is a massive inspiration, and I learn so much from them.
Thank you for pointing that out, because those are the two things that are really key. Like put time aside for personal development. If you want to be a good leader, starting with leading yourself and those that are around you, then personal development is really key. And a safe place with peers where you are inspired, encouraged, or even pushed back is really like the most valuable space. So that's part of the challenge. That's part of the ongoing mastermind groups, because there are so many people out there who want to find out when those areas of what we do, the society we live in, the home, which is really like where everything is rooted, if how they start working together as an ecosystem. It's all about finding language that is authentic and we start to believe, and finding future perspective to actually be the inspiration for that language. So for those who are, and I would say that's everyone. So it will be crowded if everyone signs up, but let's just go for that adventure. It's the website is thefuturechallenge.com, where you find more about this challenge, accelerate your future, where many aspects will come together. And just sign up, check out, and that is in January. Masterminds are ongoing. Well, we shut down a bit for Christmas and New Year's, but in January we're back again, and you can find that on businessrevivalists.com/mastermind. There's more information. There's even an invitation to just join a session as a guest, so you get a feel about it, because experience will convince you much more than any word. So that actually was the last word I could say now. Like I've just killed my own speech.
That's
Benj,
good. We've done an hour. Nothing much more to add.
Benj, thank you for your time. Thank you for the ride together. And for all those watching live or later on demand or listening to the podcast, just connect. Like you're not alone out there, and we need each other to accelerate. into the future. So take care, stay safe, and I really wish you a Merry Christmas with your loved ones. So bye bye.